and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved divine lovers of life and all you Ascensionpreneurs out there. So welcome to this video with me today, again on the topic of devoting to sacred partnership. So the relationship theme is very strong right now, making love with the sun right now. So this is a solar upgrade. So the solar and the lunar concepts, the yin and the yang meeting together as one, becoming one synthesized. So as you know, I prefer talking about the sacred holy union rather than twin flame, twin soul, these things and concepts, because a lot of the people still have a lot of residual confusion around this topic, especially because the new age template is built to create a lot of different energy streams of information to kind of pick something from here randomly and from here and there and many sources, and a lot of even astral confusion, from the other planes that are not the celestial planes and the high realms of being can be influential in the way to confuse us. So I'd rather talk about this aspect in terms of divine partnership, because it's a synthesis of the knowing that can only come through the knowledge of the union, that it's an intrinsic awareness within you once you activate that engaged part of you that is always a divine lover of life. I don't know how else to call this, but it's very simple, and in fact this truth of the divine lovers. So if you recognize yourself to be a divine lover of life, a divine lover in general, you will feel certain guidelines in your life calling you to this pathway, because a relationship will always be something that's sacred to you, something that's holy, not something that you can just superficially grasp on from the outside layers. And there's a lot of spiritual seekers out there that are still doing the inner work, and that's all good and fine. But those of you who feel really inclined on this path of being a holy divine lover, you're getting to this part of you, this precious essence within you, that purity of love that's so sacred and holy, that you're kind of filtering through the sacredness of how you're actually sharing this love, because this love needs to be shared with depth and gratitude and reverence rather than just giving it away, because a lot of the times we can squander it for the things that are not really highly purposeful. And a lot of the people within the twin flame community do exactly that, because they kind of become obsessed with a certain idea or a person or something intellectual that they perceive as a concept, but it's not an internal knowing and embodiment on their own soul journey. So they can be this scrambled brain, astral confusion a lot of the times, and these individuals get very obsessive over this topic, and it's an ongoing phenomena. And I know it's a part of the awakening journey, and yet it's also a massive sleep in a way. So if you find yourself, or even following other gurus and new age gurus, what I like to call them, they will a lot of times be this awareness share with the people when you're going to be given partial truths, like let's say 80% or 80% of the truth, and then a lot of the things that are a bit messy. So then you glue them with other part of this messy, and then a little more, and it's just scrambled. There's quite a difference when you tune into the fabric of the information, that actually just pure divine truth that comes from sacred masters like Krishnamurti and many other masters who've been sharing certain template of work that's very sacred, and they were very diligent with that. They were very strict in a way, because sometimes we have to be, it's like focused intention with what's really true and what's not. So when we have this trying to recreate this pleasure from an idea or belief or a person, and trying to hold that as the truth, and it's not, it's an illusion, that we're going to get away from that sacredness, away from that holiness of what sacred partnership truly is. So if you watch my videos on the divine love and the sacred union, reunion, twin soul, I call it twin soul because the twin soul is the truth of our creation self. And I have a beautiful mastery course. I think it's the final course, because it's about mastering polarity and twin soul essence within. That's from my 7 courses, which are mastery courses to get you into your mastery. That's not knowledge shared there. These are creation principles that are shared to help you establish your own mastery, rather than to put yourself out there in terms of just seeking and always wanting to get a certain truth from the outside. It's more created in a sense of get you through these principles, to embody them, to align with those truths, and to kind of hold them as holy in your own life, so that you start to attract, basically create that kind of reality of a master of the own self domain for yourself. So this is the 7th course, the Mastering Polarity and the Twin Soul Essence. So I call it the Twin Soul because that's the truth of our creation self. So if I look at myself, my essence, which is called aurea, then the masculine principle of it I always receive as aureon. So it's the feminine masculine balance as one. This is my yin and yang, my feminine masculine androgynous self. That's not to be confused with me wanting to project that to a certain person that I meet outside of myself. Recently I've watched this, and I don't even watch videos on the topic, but somehow it came across about, there was a question whether someone has more of these mates, what people call twin flames, or just one, and I think it was from Magenta Pixie, yes. And she explained through the principles of certain angelic perspectives that in truth, what these sacred unions are about, it's the Vesica Pisces polarity. And I always say that's the creation principle that's behind this. That's the sacred geometry that is behind the sacred union, if it is in fact a sacred union. If it's implied that it's a sacred union, which means one integrated whole, the other integrated whole, and together creating from that whole a unified unit of something that's varied. It's a new creation that comes about. So in truth, it's about the energetics, and truth, the creation principle that work behind this. It's not about you saying, well, this person is my mirror. Maybe they mirror certain aspects of you, and when you're moving through, and a lot of people that are ascending, they're moving through a lot of old karmic energies, and those are the first steps. So when they're meeting these counterparts that they often go, well, that must be my twin flame because it's so intense, they're getting that confused with moving through the energies that they need to integrate for the furthering of the advancement of their ascended path in the physical body template, that deeper moves you into the truth of what sacred union truly is, because you cannot merge with another in the Vesica Pisces polarity before you are an integrated whole. So what they explained as the creation truth, that's the eternal truth of ourself. And I always say there's the eternal truth, and then you have the truth of infinity, and that's what the infinity symbol represents. That eternal dot, and that which always moves and ebbs and flows. So that creation principle of truth is infinite. So there's infinite various opportunities. It's almost like timelines that we can create to better advance these relationships and move us forward in that divine geometry. So I have a video where I explain the difference between the twin flame, in a way, awareness, or twin soul consciousness. It's a few months back, I think it was sometime in spring, so watch that, because there's a further explanation of the union journey and how these different approaches kind of correspond and collide together as one. But what I wish to talk about here is, how do we get that polarity? How do we understand this? How do we live it in the physical body, right? Because there's so many people now talking about this on various levels of awareness, right? From twin flame obsession to moving into the Heroes Gamma, sacred partnership, sacred union, inner reunion. There's so many levels. And in a way, the truth that we're moved into, it's always going to be partial. It's like changing with how we change in our now, or in our new now. So as a shifting Homo luminous, new humans who are always approached by something new, who are always met with the truth on a new level. We're meeting ourselves always on a new level. So when you're open like that, when your heart is open to that, you're going to continuously recreate your union. Your union is not going to be a static thing. So union is not something, oh, I've unified and that's it, period. All my growth ends there, and that's what you do. Masters always tell you, the moment you think your growth is over, it's really over. You block yourself from further expansion. So don't be a smart ass. Don't say you got it all figured out, and just because you've read some twin soul, whatever material, now you got it all figured out. A sacred union is such a deep process that with great depth, you will go deeper and deeper and be moved and met by greater aspects of you. So that's what it's truly about. So I want to talk about this from the grounded perspective of how our partnerships are supposed to look in this new now. Of course, again, we're going to be met on different levels, because you might have different dreams. To someone, something is important, to someone, something else. For me, personally, I cannot imagine a sacred union without two beings being not just lovers, but partners as well. Partners in service to the greater good. That's just my union, because I am that way. Because my soul template is created that way, to service to self, to service to others. There's a union between that. And that union within the Vesica Pisces, for me, that's what it represents. So I want to remind you of the sacredness of the material that I recently encountered and rereading it now. So it's from Osho, and I never actually read Osho's material before. I didn't know him that well, but I really, really resonate with a lot of things, not everything as always, but a lot of the things in that book. And he has two books. Basically, they're transcripts of his written, pardon me, of his spoken word. So that's put in written word by his followers, I guess. And the books are about the woman and about a man. So there's two. And we're just finishing the book about a woman. We're going to move now to about a man. And there's a beautiful presentation there of something that I felt for years, ever since I was incarnated, basically. Even when I was a little girl, I looked at people, how they correspond and how much they are fixed in this rigid module of what relationship and even marriage is supposed to be. And a lot of it is matrix based, is codependent, it's based on projection. And even though now we're saying, well, we're shifting paradigms, well, are we really? It takes guts. It takes such true courage for you to make a stand and actually choose living that, not just thinking it, of the new awareness, but actually make conscious steps towards those partnerships. So you're going to feel your shifting energy in that. And just recently, I've met up with the individual that we haven't seen each other for a few months, I think. We've seen each other again. And because the integration took place between the individuals on a personal level, like for me and them, when the two came together again, there was a different harmonious, balanced correspondence. The relationship changed. It's because there was neutrality now present in a different level than before. So you see the union and how we're met by different people. And I teach this in the Cosmic Beloved course. Please get that if you really want to correspond to this new energy dynamic. I strongly advise you, because that's where we're going to learn and grow through bringing the vertical enlightenment, the Buddhic enlightenment, which I call it, into the horizontal enlightenment, into the divine lover of life essence of what we're actually created, designed to be since the very start. Before the fallen perspective took place. So when I observed that new harmonious flow in that relationship, I saw how much more it's just in that flow. And in each time the two beings meet, the feminine and masculine forces of creation through the two people. And again, there's a difference. Let's say you're watching a reading online and it's about the feminine side, the masculine side, and again, you're always thinking of it in terms of me and this person. You might get an energetic dynamics partially from that person, yes. But think of the masculine energy approaching your life first from the masculine self you're meeting within, and then being approached from various, maybe masculine energies, might not even be male, but supposedly if you're a female, then that's how it's going to take place most of the time. If you're energetically balanced within, that's what you're going to get, because as within, so without, as above, so below. So the gender polarity of your feminine will be met by the gender polarity of the masculine. So that's just how it goes. The union in the flesh, in the physical. So when this energy will approach you, it might come through different people. So if we're obsessed with one person, and if we think of ourselves as so linear, so limited, we're gonna miss out on opportunities to truly grow in this cycle. Because let's face it, we're in this cycle. When Jupiter went into Libra, it's all about partnership. It's how we're gonna grow, and it's gonna move through many of the social signs in the years to come. And now even our sun is in Libra, and a lot of signs are moving into that, and how we're going to communicate, which is Mercury. It's a lower communication aspect. And there's many things that we need to see about ourselves, and a lot of these things we will see through another. It's almost like a catalyst for our growth. And a lot of the times people don't want to see certain things that they don't want to see about themselves. So if the new energy coming through a new person, a new situation, new circumstance will come, and you will not wanting to be met by this energy, a lot of people are choosing to rather look away, run away, not face it. A lot of people call this the runner syndrome, but again, this is a label we put it because we want to define everything as humans. It's just an energy dynamics. It's not a runner chaser thing. Again, then we become obsessed with this idea of that, and then all we see is that in our reality. It's more like cycles, right, of growth and coming into ourselves and more out of ourselves, and that's just how a lot of humans are growing now. So there's an inward cycle, there's an outward cycle, and it's nothing personal. So when we feel like we're not being met by this counter positioned energy, counterbalanced energy, we might feel rejection, and a lot of us have been feeling that. And especially the females, we've been the driving force of this union. We're kind of like pulling the masculine into our vortex, and a lot of the times it was like, no, there's this rejection, and it wasn't personal. It was never really personal. Each masculine energy vortex on their own, they were where they were, and that's where they were able to meet us on that level. But the first meaning, the most important meaning, is how through that, even if it's filtered from their side, let's say you love someone and it's unrequited and they don't love you back, or they're not reciprocating the energy, and it's about you, it's how you love. It's the love that you feel no matter what. It's the love you're learning is an unconditional way to first give to yourself, then ripple it out unconditionally without feeling. Now I'm going to filter it because they're filtering it. So then you're just playing their game. And again, you're not unifying within your own self first. If they follow, if they're feeling intact with that, they're going to follow. That's good. It's beautiful. If not, then what can you do? It's free will, right? As most humans are still playing it. Although I always say free will is such a tiny aspect of who we are. And the moment we think, well, I have free will, and we're missing out on much bigger vision that we are as Homo Luminous, which is we're divine will. We need to follow the life force that is divinely oriented. So, there's only two paths in truth. The path of the lower self, the path of the higher self, the path of the free will, which we think we have so many choices, and the path of the divine will when we surrender to those higher choices. But we have to be emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally ready for that, to make those leap jumps. So what's happening now is we're learning to, those of you who've made this a more balanced curve within yourself, you're seeing there's less drama in relationships coming your way. A lot of you have probably even completed the so-called karmic energies that you've been meeting through other people. And again, please get the Cosmic Course if you want to have more understanding of what I'm talking about, because you might feel like she's talking about random gibberish here, and I explain these concepts and archetypes more in the course. And it's like so long, the course. I think it's around 3 hours almost. So much shared there. So if you really want to be activated in this new creation cycle and start this new alchemical cycle between the male and female polarities, and I really advise you to do that. But when we are, there's so much to talk about here, but when we are moving deeper, right, those of you who have done the inner work, in a certain level you will feel, but I've done this, I've met all parts of me. And sometimes there's like, there's always more, right? There's always new aspects of us to meet. But let's say on a certain creation cycle, on a certain level, you really did. So what comes up next, right? It's you sharing that with another. It's overflowing. Because when the love of the self meets the love of another, that's when union can occur. And a lot of people are like seeing the other, seeing the mirror, and they get so absorbed in their self-love, they're no longer seeing the other. And again, that's not balanced. So people say, well, freedom is when you're really free and you don't care about the other and you're aloof, and that's not really the concept of freedom. Freedom is, and if you look at the nature of everything, dark and light, male, female, everything is always intertwined. Otherwise, it cannot coexist. You wouldn't have all this creation if those balanced polarities would not be, in a way, always glued together at the same time. They're entwined, right? So when you say, well, being free is being away from the other, being away from unity, then you're again missing the point. You're becoming separate. When you see freedom as devotion and flow with another, so when the commitment is intertwined with the aspect of freedom, that's truly union. And a lot of the people are still in separation in these concepts, because they either move too much into the freedom or they're too committed there. At the same time, you get attached, they get codependent. So these are not balanced energies and how we play them out. So I love reading Osho's book, because that's how he explains that most marriages are so wrong from that perspective, because they're so imbalanced. And that he's not against marriage, but the way we approach marriage is like, now we're together, now we need to be together for the rest of our life, even if we don't somehow correspond on a soul level anymore, and we don't let each other go. So it has to be freedom in that level, but until there is commitment and there is unity, there needs to be devotion. So devotion is the synthesis between commitment and freedom. And that's why I love the word devotion, because it's the middle path. Devotion is following your heart, following the guidelines of your heart that leads you in between those polarities, that you're always in the middle. Because otherwise you can move into these extremes. Let's say someone would meet up a new energy, would be too intense, and they'd rather shut off and cut that off. I always tell you, if you're cutting people and energies prematurely out of your life, if they haven't yet developed and had their own culmination, you're just basically cutting off aspects of you away. you're cutting that off, and you're not integrating them. You're not becoming the wholeness of your cosmic beloved. So that's all I talk about in the course, and I give you exercises how to do it and how to approach energies coming through other people. So it's very simple, basically. It's so simple once you get what it's all about, of being a divine lover of life. Because every person you meet, you will see then as, you will see such a gift. You'll be so grateful for it. And you'll see all as a part of your beloved journey, not just this person, other people don't even interest me. So union is meeting these multivarious, multidimensional aspects of you through these streams of energy coming through maybe other people, and learning through it, applying it. So if someone is met by this new energy and they go and run up in the cave, which was very much the archetype of the old male energy. So the male moves and goes in the cave for 40 days, maybe even, and the woman's there alone and with the sisters, and that's been like ongoing, like this record playing ongoing is so old. It's getting old. The union aspect of now wants us to really unify the masculine and feminine energies as coexistent, as not just cohabiting, but in a way it's supporting each other. So it's supporting the growth of one another by alchemizing it all the time. There's this constant infusion of energy, of devotion between the two. Not these extremes when you're so close together and then you move apart for, let's say, weeks and days and even years, and then, well, maybe I'm going to unify again. That was the old concept. That was the old way of, Now the middle stream, when we get this, right, the DNA chain also kind of in a way shows this. But when we know how to do that, when we've integrated, when we've met ourselves on the enough level that we can culminate it, now we're synthesizing it. We go through that middle way. There's always a connection there in between, and I know a lot of you will resonate with that because you're feeling that already, and you're feeling less drama coming through other people. Even if they're still having drama in their life, you're no longer feeling the need to play a certain role for them so they would better advance, or you would help them out or something like that, because you're no one's guide or helper in that way. They're always going to be needing to meet their own inner teacher, guide, and guru, whatever you call it, their own divine lover of life. So recently someone reminded me, because they said in the video, who are we to work with in a way to manage other people's potentials? Because a lot of, even especially feminines, that's very much goes for the feminine, but for both genders, we kind of like fall in love with the potential. Oh, this person has such potential. Wow, they must be my beloved. Or wow, there's great potential here. Let's see what can happen. Although their physical embodiment through the signs and their action plus non-action towards you, towards the union, towards devotion, they're not showing it. So there's no physical proof and alignment with that, what you see as that potential. And yet you kind of give in, and then you're going to be disappointed because you've been a part of their shadow process that they need to integrate on their own. And what someone recently, a sacred sister, reminded me, that then you become their shadow man or their shadow woman. And it's like, yes, because you become a part of their messy process. It's not messy, but you know how it is when we go through these dark stages, and we have to certain things we have to let go of and unmask. And people wear a lot of masks still. I tend to see that. It's just how it is. But when your love is pure and you've done the work, then you no longer want to be part of that. You can love at distance. You can love neutrally. You can love through compassion. And that's a higher form of love. So these unions now that we're creating, we're going to create them from this new blank slate. No longer from these attached energies, not just karmic, but even volunteering, right? I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you out. And then you're disappointed because they're not meeting you at your level. So you're giving, and they're not returning. And you're like complaining. Well, a lot of people do that, especially the twin flame communities. And when you no longer participate in that, you're helping the male to develop on their own, and you're helping yourself to be also in the receptive female, because the feminine has been in a way, because of all that, kind of like cutting off from that receptivity. And when there's no male energy in the physical to compensate your giving in a way to make it balanced, then you need to kind of invoke that within you first. You can't look it outside of you first. So that's the work we need to do first from within. And that's why I talk about this as a sacred union that begins within. So when someone is met, right, with this new energy, let's go back to that, and it's too intense for them, and it's too much, and they say, I don't want to even deal with that now, or, people do that a lot, and they want to cut it off. It can be very dangerous because they're not seeing that the universe and their own higher self brought them this situation or this person for a reason, and if they're magnetically drawn to them, it's a part of their journey. It's something that doesn't mean necessarily they have to be with the other person, or it's just something that they need to meet as within themselves. And the further we negate and we kind of become very appalled even with that energy, we again go into those extremes, and we're cutting off parts and bits and pieces of ourselves that want to come into the union of our soul integration. That's who we are. We take people are, I always say that every relationship I've met held a piece of me in a way. So it helped me to integrate that knowledge of more of me, to be more unified. So if someone reminded me of the essence of how it is to be playful, and let's say they would go, and if I sought that out externally, I'd be like, oh, where's the person? Oh my God, oh, I missed them, oh, crying out, that I'm missing the point that they just came to remind me of maybe I didn't yet fully, maybe I did partially, but not yet fully integrate the energy of playfulness and my magical inner child from within myself. That's just one example. So let's go back to what Osho talks about. He says that in order for us to have true unions, we need to penetrate each other. And in my own experience, I've met that people rarely do that because of the fact that they're so afraid to meet their full selves. They're afraid of what the new might bring. They're afraid of doing energies. They're like, oh, what will this mean? I have to change everything in my life, because they think everything is a change in one day, right? So they're not willing to make the steps. So, when you're sabotaging yourself, when you think of everything as too overwhelming, instead of doing tiny steps towards it, towards unifying from within and with another, with the other that kind of magnetically pulls you, you rather just shut it off completely because you think it's just all one step. So that's one of the biggest sabotages that we do for ourselves as humans. So Osho talks about the fact that a lot of these relationships are basically, they're not unions. They're not even partnerships. They're not even romantic. They're just acquaintance-based relationships. And that's true. And a lot of people think they're lovers or they're intimate, but the intimacy level is so low that when you look at it from the spectrum of awareness, you can only call it acquaintanceship in a way. So I call it divine companionship, and it takes time, and love on earth, as I always say, develops. It matures over time. And a lot of the time, we see things, right? And we take this tiny interval of energy and we say, wow, this is what I have as a perspective about this person. We limit them in this box, and therefore we limit ourselves. And what happens as a consequence is that we miss out on the bigger picture that unfolds through time, because wisdom is always acquired through time, sometimes even through lifetimes. And if we look at only one tiny aspect of a relationship, of something, and we define it according to that interval, we're very poor in our awareness. We're not able to see the bigger picture, because everything was always for us, through us, Spirit showing us and guiding us. And a lot of the times, people look at relationship even as mistakes. I met this person and they disappointed me. It was a mistake. Universe never, ever, ever makes mistakes. Once I remembered this example when someone told me, well, I shouldn't be with you because you have this twin flame somewhere and blah, 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 and I shouldn't be with you. But yet we met at that time. I'm like, but that is an illusion of projection of the future that does not exist now. It might be a potential. It might be in my path somewhere along the lines or not. But the reason of the grounded, embodied way and the pathway, the middle path, is that now we met. And we're drawn to each other. And when we trust that this magnetic pull will naturally dissolve when we penetrate each other enough, that we have done the work. I'm not talking about the physical penetration, I'm talking about the spiritual penetration when it's deep and goes to the soul level of the root of our being, meeting each other as divine lovers, then that will naturally either move away if we've done the purpose with each other, or it will intertwine and entwine even more. So we need to allow love to flourish. It takes time, but we also need to know how to be wise in love, which means if you're noticing the signs, earthly grounded physical signs that someone is playing the double game with you, double signs, sending mixed signals and mixed messages, not following it up with integrity, saying something they'll do but they don't, and things like that, right? You have to follow up with those signs as well, because what a lot of people in the twin community do, they only go for the signs of, wow, this is union, this is good, I got these messages and dreams, and this is one aspect, right? The above. But the below, our human counterpart, also needs to be met. And these signs that are physical, acknowledge in this present moment of what someone embodies or not. So the actions they do or non-action on their part also need to be considered. And that's the full union. So recently I did this reading for the masculine and feminine synergy, so that the both male and female, like let's say male is on the left side, feminine is on the right side, and they both have the upper and the lower. So the ethereal and the earthly, the above and the below. And how can we meet those aspects? Was trying to synthesize and then together, right? So they both need to first meet their vertical selves, their horizontal selves, so that they can have union of both, as the marriage of Heroes Gamos, the holy union. These unions, as I always say, they develop through time, and a lot of people don't understand that. They think they met some person They reflect something to them so deeply, but they look at it so linearly, like that's the only event that ever occurred in their life. You know, sometimes people say love is blinding you, but love, true love, never blinds you. It's the fake artificial love, it's the infatuation that blinds us. And that's what I love about Osho's work in that book, because he talks about the fact that that's not love. if love is love, it stays, and it grows and it deepens, and that's true love on the spiritual component. That can be sexual, can be romantic, can develop into any part of our human experience, because our mastery does occur in the physical experience, and yet we need to penetrate each other deep enough to get to that heaven on earth, so we can actually experience it, not just think about it, how wonderful it is, this union, and then no one does the work. No one's bringing that new paradigm. No one's doing that work of inner synthesis. We're just thinking about it all the time. And sometimes when I look at the people and their reactions, I'm quite disappointed. And I get discouraged sometimes, but yet, you know, I have to be neutral and say, well, that's just a part of their growth, and it has nothing to do with me and how I unite, and how I'm devoted to the sacred service, and how I am devoted to divine love. It's just me. And why would I stop my joy and infatuation because of someone else's projection and filtering, and their own ego projections coming out, and their mask that they're wearing for ages and ages, and they're not willing to drop just because they're afraid what happens once you drop the mask down. So that's kind of like a very serious topic, and yet it's playful. It's supposed to be fun. So people expect a lot of goodies, lots of fun and pleasure and bliss, and yet they don't want to go deep enough. But that's when the true pleasure, the samadhi experiences between the two, something that you can achieve in your own meditative state, like I do tantric yoga and experience it a lot. And with another, sometimes it's more challenging, especially if you have someone that's not strong enough energetically that can meet you on that level. So you might hold your expectations about it, or you fall in love for the potential, and yet it's not there. So you continue to fall in love with you, bring more of you through that union. It's still union. It might not be fully equalized in that moment, but it's a work in progress. That's how we call it. It's perfect in its imperfection in this now moment, and yet we need to see things real as well, because I met a lot of the beautiful spiritual beings, but they're too up there. Their ascension is going up only there in the higher realms. It's not being brought into the physical. It's not being brought into earth. But that's what sacred partnerships are supposed to do. They're supposed to anchor heaven on earth. And when I look at the percentages of the, maybe let's call it the divine couples that are dedicated to that, it's very minimum. It's some to some degree, and it's beautiful, and yet it's so minimum in comparison to the mass. Most, you know, it's still in stages and still in development, because the masculine and feminine forces are still learning to cooperate in a balanced way without looking away from each other. More union, more coming together, more closeness, not running away and meeting constantly just old situations and old perspectives, because we need to eventually be willing to rise to the new. And I know it's not easy for some people, but in truth, when you are devoted to truth, when you're really a lover, when you're a lover of life, when you're a divine lover, it will be simple. It was simple. Devotion is just so simple once you get into the root of what it means to be an egoic person and let that go. And you no longer associate even with being egoic. I have an ego. I was like, okay. At a certain point, you need to drop the perspective that you even have an ego. And again, it's like always having it, and you never let that go. In a certain perspective, you need to start saying, I'm a divine lover of life. I'm guided and I'm choosing love. Divine love guides me. It's my only true life force, and it's my divine creation. It's my divine origin, and it's who I choose to be in the now moment, in this physical embodiment as well, just as much as I am in my spirit self. So I hope this video somehow helped you to see this in a grounded way. I recommend these Osho's books strongly. There's a lot of things I don't want to talk about now because there's too much. Then I gotta have a whole course about it. Yeah, you know, horses are very much about that devotion, because you can see a couple of horses, how they are when they're with each other. It's beautiful. So yeah, horses as well, I guess. But yeah, the course is there. It's available on my page. The link is also shared down below. Please check that out. If you want to support my free videos, donations are also always available. So thank you very much for that, because it helps me to be aligned with this purpose and to continuously bring the devotion of my spirit into matter. I love you all so very much. I'm very, I don't know, blissful right now. There's something happening right now with the energy. I feel like I've stepped into this divine love vortex, and the divine love just speaks through me. It's no longer even me. It's just beautiful, and I love when that happens. I just feel like, wow, it's pure radiance. And yeah, you just feel this sense of, you know what the divine union is for you, because a lot of people sometimes come to you and they ask you, what is it twin flame for you? But how do you see it? I've watched this video, what do you think about it? It's like, in the end, it's not about that. You will need to find your own source of truth of what divine union is for you, and it might mean different things to different people, and that's okay. But at least you're making steps towards self-unifying, towards getting to the root of what is your truth and applying it on the physical level of your earthly embodiment, which is beautiful. And don't run away from people, from situations, even though sometimes people don't want to see it. It's too much. You know, when you feel like, your love is too much for someone. And that's how I mostly felt rejection on this planet, because my love was just too much. It was too much for most people, and a part of me wanted to kind of withhold it, and it felt rejected. But now when I engaged in so much of my own self-union, I no longer do that. I continuously be me, regardless of the response I'm getting from the outside. I'm still me, I'm still sharing, I'm still loving. Because why would I shut myself down because someone is shutting themselves down? It doesn't make any sense, right? When you look at it from a neutral perspective. So you see others as where they are. They're able to meet you how they do. You don't force them, you don't force things to happen, and yet you can still share compassion. You can still be in divine love with all life and with them or whoever you choose to. It's your choice. You're free in that. So when you devote to that, it will just naturally flow. And when there's commitment through devotion, not like extremes, right? Running away, coming close, double signals, then the relationship will flow. And that's what we're going into. We want this harmony of constant energy exchange and flow, ebb and flow. We don't want that extremes, right? It's like push and pull. That's old. Like tossing and turning the ball around the court. That's really old, and it's based on ego playing games. These two people, I mentioned them before, Bart and Jody, twin flames Bart and Jody, they speak about this egoic tendencies within the twin polarity playing out in a beautiful way. They have many, I think, free courses also on YouTube. I watched just a few of their videos, but they explain this beautiful how the ego acts and how truly the soul is through divine love. So that's it for today. I really love you all so much. Choose this path of a divine lover. It is a commitment. It's a lifetime's commitment, and it is who we truly are in the end. No matter what you will choose in your life and say, this is my path, this is my mission, that's my mission, in the end, once your soul is ready, you will see that that was always your mission. Is to be a divine lover. Is to be returning to the source of you, which is divine love. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. I don't even want to say those things, but I still am right now. I really hope this video somehow touched your heart. If you want to share your feedback with me, I love receiving your feedback letters, so thank you so much for that as well. The links again down below. There's also a Divine Mother's Gateway for moving into divine love with yourself. That is a light activation for me, and people usually love these activations, so that's available too. Check that out. I love you so much, and again, love, wisdom, and power. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Welcome into